Hi there, and welcome to this first of many first episodes of the podcast Growing Down. So, I've had this desire to create a podcast for many, many years. And I actually had one with a colleague of mine. I think it was in 2018, but then I got pregnant and she went to Bali and she got pregnant and we had babies and everything happened. So it kind of just dissolved. And then I've had my own podcast that I've tried to bring to life twice. But a lot of things come, this is such a healing and growing experience for me because it brings up so many unconscious and unmetabolized thoughts about how and who I should be. So with this podcast, I've decided to give myself permission. I'm giving myself permission to say a lot. I give myself permission to rant if I feel like ranting. I give myself permission to be silent if I want to be silent. I give myself permission to have shitty sound if the sound is shitty. I'm recording it both on video and audio, and for the video, I'm giving myself permission to look away from the camera. I'm giving myself permission to come, pretty much to come as I am. I'm giving myself permission to show up as the human being that I am. I'm just going to take that in for a moment, and I invite you to also take that in and see what can you give yourself permission to do today, or how can you give yourself permission to show up as you are today? Is there something that you would like to give yourself permission to? And I might have forgotten that in the beginning, but my name is Linda Nenne. I might circle back to sharing the story around my name. Or I might share it straight away. So the name my parents gave me was Linda, but as soon as I learned how to talk, I named myself Nenne. So I didn't respond to the name Linda at all. I only responded to the name Nenne. So anyone who has been like in my close family or close friends has always called me Nenne, but then in school and at work and in other places, I've been Linda. So that's why I'm now using both names. You can choose to call me whatever you like. If you want to call me Linda or you want to call me Nenne, that's whatever is fine. So growing down. I've spent a lot of time in the past 20, 15, 12 years to grow down. So first to grow down into the physical body, to get into a deep relationship with body and all the parts of body, from skin to muscles to bones to organs to blood to fascia to brain to nervous system, all things physical body. And that growing down into body has then opened up the portal even deeper into the layers of this earthly self. So into psyche, or the unconscious, and into the shadow lands and the darkness and all the things that are a part of me, but are hidden from direct view. And then from that into the dream world, the oceanic dream world, where the unconscious is communicating and communing and speaking to the conscious through stories and symbols. And I think it's a few months ago, I heard Jaguar Wombat on, I think it's called The Rise of the Feminine podcast. And anything I'm referencing, I will put in the show notes. So if you want to look it up, you can do it. Anyway, so I heard her on the podcast, and she sang this healing song that just went straight into me. It was like she was singing, the song melted into my bones. And I'm gonna let that healing song be the theme song for this podcast, this Growing Down podcast. And this is my own version of it. So it's an invocation, I feel. You can close your eyes and listen and see where the words or the vibration of the words land inside of you. If you want to get up to the joy, you gotta go deep. So go down, go down, go down. If you want to get up to the joy, you gotta go deep. So go down, go down, go down. Go down, go down, go down. And isn't this one of the paradoxes of this being human? We're growing up from birth, from when we are born, we're laying there so close to earth. And it is that closeness to earth, to gravity, that supports us to rise up to kneeling, to rise up to crawling, to standing. So it's the going down that gives us the energy and the trust and the vitality to move up to the joy. But oftentimes as adults in this, I think the growing down as an adult is like it's the second layer of growing up. And maybe for some it happens earlier in life, but I think for many of us it happens somewhere around midlife, or maybe it starts around the Saturn return. So the Saturn return is when we're around 28 years old. And that is when the planet of Saturn returns to the same position as when we were born. If I'm not getting it wrong, I'm not an astrologer, but if you're listening to this, you probably had something big or life-changing, a transformation or a change in the trajectory of your life that happened around that time, around the time of 28. And that can be when this invitation to grow down comes. And since it's not something that our current culture is really encouraging and supporting, it's probably a process that takes a lot of time. So it might also be that if it's not completed, it will sort of reinvigorate and begin to pull around what we might call midlife, so around 40, which is something I really felt strongly. I turned 40 2.5 years ago, I think. And it was really a time of going even deeper downwards. And why do we even want to go down? I think so. Let me collect myself. It's keep having. So this is something you might want to know about me. I often work and talk in spirals. I might leave a subject to jump into something else because I have this idea that keeps kind of coming up, wanting to be known and spoken about. And then I kind of have to let that come out before I can return to whatever I was talking about before. So if I leave subjects suddenly, I will probably return to them. And if not, maybe they weren't that important. So something I want to say, and this is, I feel, important for me in this process of beginning to share or starting this conversation with you through this medium. And this is an idea that wasn't completely foreign to me, but a dear colleague of mine, Colette Davis, she's the mother of Samavesha School of Yoga. I'll put the links to her in the show notes. She said that she's using the kind of the meaning of the words progress, not perfection, in her work and her life. And when she said that, just like the healing song of Jaguar Woman, those words, progress, not perfection, when she said them, it was like, I felt them more in my nervous system. It was like they entered my nervous system, and I just had this deep sigh and softening of my body, and progress, not perfection. And I'm entering this relationship with the growing down spirit, the spirit of this podcast, in that kind of way. Okay, so let's make some progress, small steps, daily small steps. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be messy. I'm allowed to fail, whatever that means. I'm allowed to be cringe and be messy. I probably said that already. And it will, and the funny thing here is that it's already perfect as it is, and it will probably evolve and change as my relationship with the spirit of this offering deepens. So it doesn't feel like a brand new relationship. We've been on dates. We've sat in the forest in silence. We've held hands. we've touched each other, me and the spirit of this offering, but it's still quite new, the relationship. So this is like this is almost like the next step in this relationship, to beginning to share it with you. So progress, not perfection. Thank you, Colette, for that. Do you think I remember where I left off that other thread? No, I have no idea. I have no idea. And just saying that I have no idea reminds me that, yes, why do we want to grow down? I believe that the way modern society works is that it really cuts us off. It cuts us off from spirit. And we might turn to religion to get back into relationship with spirit. But I also feel that religion very much cuts us off from our more animalistic nature. And something I'm very, very passionate about is that the meeting of spirit and animal, and how they have such a sweet and loving relationship when invited to or allowed to. Through our physical body, we are animals. Our physical animal body is a portal into our truest and deepest self in all dimensions: earthly, heavenly, spiritual, all dimensions. And what this modern society also does, not just cuts us off from spirit, but also when we cut off from the depths of our being, we're also cut off from our deepest desires and our hunger. So if you're on my email list, you already received an email where I asked you what you're hungry for, like what you're truly deeply hungry for. I'm gonna expand on that here, but it might be ideas that you've already heard, then listen to them with today's ears. So a hunger that is felt, like there is that hunger that really awakens you, that softens your skin and salviates your mouth and sings in your bones, just like the healing song sang in my bones, and it moistens your pussy. So I'm speaking mostly to female-bodied humans, but everything I say, I think, is true for all humans. So if you don't have a pussy, then what is it moistening? That hunger. Where can you feel like that hunger? That is, it's sensual and it's sexual, but it's even more than that. That hunger that is a portal back to the wildness in you, to your true, creative, alive, spiritual, and really human self. And so the way modern society is structured cuts us off from that hunger. Like we might as children want to go in one direction, but we keep, like society keeps pushing us all in the same direction. So instead of us walking like animals, making our own paths in the forest, we're all sort of pushed onto the highway of this is how it should be. And when that hunger inside of you, that really primordial and primal hunger, is not met, it leaves you feeling empty. And it's not that there is this full and vibrating emptiness, but it's not that kind of emptiness I'm talking about. I'm talking about this clawing, growling, and lonely emptiness that keeps you up at night, where you pace aimlessly around your house like a caged animal, not knowing what to do. You can't find your sleep. But that emptiness and those sleepless nights are your guides. So don't try to make them stop, and don't try to biohack them away, or using all of these gadgets and tools to make you sleep. Stay up, stay awake at night, and pace around like that caged animal and listen to it. What is it that it wants? What is it so hungry for that it can't go to sleep? Yeah. So I had a woman that I was working with, and she had this very strong and visceral aversion towards the question, what are you hungry for? Or what do you desire and dream about for yourself? Because when she received the question, she only received it in the topmost layer of herself, which I believe is the layer that is packed with all the things that we've been taught from the outside. All the information from the outside is packed in that one dense little layer. And when she received the question into that layer, all she could come up with was things that she thought she should desire. So new kitchen tiles, or a trip to the Bahamas, or a more meaningful job, or a variety of other material things that she didn't need. And whenever she thought about all of these dreams and desires, she said, I just feel tired to my bones. I just want to lay down. I just can't do this anymore. And that was because she couldn't find and feel her own hunger. Because that hunger, we had to together grow down, grow down, grow down, grow down. And what was in the layers in between was the frustration of being caged, and the anger and the rage for it. And then the next layer was that deep grief and sadness for all that was lost. And we sat with what was alive in her. We didn't go digging. Not in that way. We didn't go digging. Where is it under all of this crap? No. We sat, and she was growing down slowly, 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 meeting every layer of what was alive in her, until one day she said, I want to go into the forest and build a fire. And I want to sit there until night falls. And I want to sleep naked in the moist moss and wake up with the first rays of the sun tickling the treetops above my head. And I want to wake up to the sound of the birds singing life back into my bones. And this was her awakening. This was her return to the what I call the spirit of the great mother. So she who envisions and births and nourishes and nurtures this entire universe and all the universes and all life and everything that exists and will ever exist. And in that return, she was being held in her wholeness. We didn't push away any of the parts that were coming up, everything. We just kept on holding and holding and holding. And that was when that primal and primordial hunger began to stir. And deep inside her pelvic bowl, that is growing down. And another part of why it's so difficult, so one part, of course, why it's so challenging is because it is asking a lot from us. It is asking us to sit with and move with and be in relationship with all those things inside of us that we've spent so much time trying to get rid of. All the emotions we don't want to feel, all the thoughts about ourselves that we don't want to look at. And also another part of why it's so challenging is because the same culture that is kind of pushing us onto this concrete highway is also starving you. And I mean, so, I feel I'm tiptoeing into sensitive territory. So my maybe ignorant assumption is that you who is listening is living in the Western society, in the West, what we call the Western world. I think that's what we call it. But this culture, this dominant culture, is starving us. And it's starving us in different ways. So if we think about the other parts of the world where humans are literally starving because there is no food, it's also because of Western modern culture, because we choose to put resources onto other things than feeding our fellow humans. And if you're a female-bodied human in the Western world, you're also praised for starving yourself, for keeping yourself small and thin. And we all know this. I mean, we can go scroll on our Instagram or look in a magazine. Keep your legs closed, your arms composed, your speech controlled and unupsetting. And when I was thinking about this earlier, I also thought about, well, what if you're in a male body? Or if you're identifying as a man? I think in the same way you're praised for starving yourself to stay dense and muscular and really cut yourself off. And we're also starving because we're deprived from all the things that can feed that wild in you. So, I mean, food is one way of feeding the wild in you. So I think that our biological hunger can be a portal to get into, to grow down into that really primal, primordial hunger that I'm talking about what you desire in this world. That your biological hunger to begin to feel in your belly when it's hungry, and to feed it before it starts growling. Feed it before that. Keep it fed and nourished and nurtured. And we're also getting deprived from this wildness by depriving ourselves from everything that is wet and moist and dirty and loud and spontaneous and irrational and illogical and chaotic and mystical and non-linear and spiralic and cyclical. So everything that is natural. Everything that is natural. And by beginning to feed in all the ways you can feed that wildness inside of you are ways of growing down. And that could even be, I'm gonna go take a sip of water. That can even be to drink when you're thirsty. And it's interesting how nowadays there's so many all kinds of apps and gadgets and things we can put on our bodies that will tell us when it's time to drink, or when it's time to eat, or when it's time to rest. And these things can be helpful. I have friends who have used them and have found them really helpful, and have found them as ways for them to get back into more connection with themselves and their bodies. But then they've intentionally used these tools in that way. Then there are many who simply put on all of these wristbands and I don't know, things you put around your head and whatever all the things are, and then they are connected to your phone, and then your phone tells you when to drink, and not using it in a way of getting deeper into a relationship with those biological needs, but as ways of not having to think about it, or more correctly, not having to feel into it. So it can even be, I'm inviting you to even just to take some time to explore in what ways are you or have you been starved. And what have you been told that you should be hungry for? What have you been told you should be hungry for? So that could be good grades and praise and the right education, a good job, purity, marriage. I know I was from somewhere in my, maybe I was a teenager or something. For some reason, my mother kept telling me to marry someone rich so I wouldn't have to take care of myself. And that has been a really big thing in my family of origin, that women have had husbands that have paid for everything. So that's what I was taught to be hungry for, which is a whole different story. Or maybe it's another whole difference, but it's a long story, so I'm not going to go into it. But to notice these things and how have they kind of lured you away from your own real, true hunger. And I think that until we reconnect with this instinctual nature, and until we begin to grow down into our bodies and psyche and unconscious and the dream world and into that hunger that lies underneath everything, we're going to walk through life feeling not full, not fulfilled. And I know for myself that when I turn to food, I begin to overeat. When I'm not feeding the wild in me. And I also believe that it's every time you take a step closer to this true hunger, you kindle that fire inside of you. And it doesn't matter how long or far away from it you perceive yourself to be. It's because it's not a linear process. So every time you take a step closer, you're moving closer to it. Even if you then take 100 steps back and you're still here taking a step closer the next time, because you kindle that fire and it begins to burn stronger and stronger and stronger. And as it does, what happens is that it begins to pull you in. It's beginning to pull you in, asking you to grow down, grow down, grow down, deeper and deeper. I think that was it for today. I had this thought, I do find that the channel of writing down my ideas is quite sort of open. So I just had the idea that I might use the same material in different ways, which is a great idea. And then when I speak, it kind of evolves. More information can come through, or wisdom. Okay, so thank you for listening. If you've listened to this, maybe you know me in some way from before. I have a humble request from you, and that is to give me some, if you want to give me some encouragement as I'm taking my first kind of wobbly steps onto this path. So you can send me a DM, a message, an email, or write a review on iTunes, Apple Podcast, or anywhere where you can write reviews. Something encouraging would be, I would receive it. And also, one more thing. I am kind of what I also want with this podcast, Growing Down, is to invite other humans with experience of or on the path of growing down to have conversations with. That feels maybe a bit outside the edge, so I don't think it's gonna happen in the next month or so. But if you have someone that you think I should have a conversation with, then please do let me know. Maybe you want to come and have a conversation with me about this. And remember, if you want to get up to the joy, you gotta go deep. So go down, go down, go down. Much love.